Hi, everybody. Welcome to ECE 342, Week 10, our class that we were supposed to have in person tonight, but it's snowing really, really hard. Hopefully, you all, the four of you that I saw earlier today, made it home safely, and the other three of you made it home safely from wherever you happen to be today. Um, Good news is we are going to make things work today. Take some time to share some good news with yourself and reflect on the good things you've got going. We're going to make it work with a little bit of a presentation, a task for you to work on this week, and uploading your text connection. And we'll talk about a couple assignments too. So the theme of this week was I had to read the De Bono article about the 6 hats thinking. And De Bono talked a lot about, in the article, about being creative and what creativity means. So you can think for a minute about whether or not you think yourself to be a creative person, why or why not. I think this is an interesting question because often when I ask it, people think that they are not creative and that they don't have anything creative to offer because maybe they don't feel like they're a good artist or a musician. But creativity doesn't necessarily have to be in the arts. So if you said that you are not a creative person, De Bono would probably think you're wrong. He thinks creative thinking is much more broad than that. And I really enjoy this quote. Creativity is in everyone. It just manifests itself differently with each person. My CPA, for example, is one of the most creative people I know. So you could be an accountant and be very creative. And that's sort of what we wanted to get at today when we talk about design challenges and science and thinking about what creative thinking looks like in each of the different disciplines, which is where the 6 hats of thinking come into play. If I were there in person today, I'd be reading this book to you. It's called Ish by Peter Reynolds. It's a great book that, yes, does focus on art, but it does sort of also open up this idea of creative thinking. And I would love it if you would pause this video right now, go to Blackboard, open up Blackboard, and you will see that I have posted a YouTube video that's about 4 to 5 minutes long of someone reading this book out loud to you. I would love for you to take the time and read and listen / read this book and just think about what De Bono would say about it and other connections that you can make between creativity and your text connections in this article. So go ahead, click pause, go open that one up, and I'll be waiting right here when you come back. Okay. So the next thing you need to do for our online task is to reflect on each of these 6 thinking hats that are brought out in the De Bono article. And I'm going to have you do a task that you are going to submit on Blackboard as kind of an assignment, although it's really going to be graded as attendance, right? So we're going to count it as you do this task and we'll count you as present for today, even though we're not there in person. So the 6 hats are intuitive, informative, constructive, reflective, creative, and cautious. And they've got 6 different colors attached to them. So what you're going to do is you're going to, in a Word document, list these 6 different hats and the 6 different colors, and in your own words, write one sentence as to what you think each one of these 6 hats of thinking mean. And you can pull this directly from the article, but I want you to kind of be short and sweet and use your own words to define them. Then I also want you to list an example of a time when you might need to use that particular type of thinking. It can be in school, it can be in life, anything really, but a time when you would need each of these 6 hats in these 6 different colors. Then in this same Word document, once you've gone through that, I want you to answer these 2 questions in more of like a paragraph each. This is going to be a little bit of an extension of your text connections and the article. You might have written about some of these in your text connections, but maybe not. And even if you have, I want you to expand on just these questions a little bit more in your task. Why would intentionally putting on the hats aid in creativity? So how can maybe thinking, all right, I'm going to put on my reflective hat right now. Like, why would that help you and how might that help you be a more creative person? And then thinking about this next question, why would doing this be good for design thinking, where it's necessary to solve problems? So thinking about what it takes to be creative in a different space when it comes to science and why it might be necessary to be put on an informative hat, for example, or a constructive hat. So those can be about a short paragraph each, reflecting on those a little bit more. And what we were going to do today, if we were there in person, is do a couple of different things. We were going to do a creative design challenge called Box It. In fact, that was what I wanted you to read for tonight. From the Making and Tinkering book, but we're not going to get to do that this time, and I don't think we're going to get to do that this semester probably. We'll see if we have time for it, but it's good that you got to read an example of a design challenge that did not have a problem necessary to solve, because design challenges can be used in many different ways. So sometimes they are there to solve problems, right? Like when you had to keep Teacher Annie dry when you build your house. That was a problem that I posed to you. And then last week, the problem was inspired by a book when we made Iggy Peck's Tall Towers. Sometimes the problem has a real world application, like this picture of a squirrel. Maybe a design challenge is to design a feeder for, like a bird feeder that squirrels can't get into. In fact, this is a problem that we, as a kid, my mom set aside a task for us to figure out how to keep the squirrels out of her bird feeder. So that can be like a real world problem to solve. Box It was just going to be simply turn this box into something else. That's not necessarily a problem, but it still might require this different kind of design thinking, like putting your creative hat on or putting a different hat on to think about how a box could be something other than a box. So there's many different ways to be designed, to be design thinking, right? Problem oriented or not. And we were going to do both today. We were going to talk about the squirrel bird feeder, and we were going to talk about and we were going to do the Box It challenge. But kind of keep those two things in mind as to what design challenges could look like, because you are going to still need to do your design challenge assignment, which is definitely still going to be due next week. Which brings me to this. So your design challenge assignment, this is the same slide I showed you guys last week, but I wanted to sort of refresh your memory on this. It's very similar to the Representing Place assignment in that it's two parts. Part 1 is the design, and part 2 is the reflection. But different than the Representing Place assignment is this time for part 1, I have a very specific template that I want you to use. So remember, it's on Blackboard in a Word document. You're going to download it and just enter in your text underneath the questions or prompts that are provided on the template. So that is going to be the plan. That's going to be your part 1. You have to do like a little introductory paragraph that's in the assignment sheet about kind of what age group this is for and what the challenge is, but then you are going to fill out the rest of the template for part 1. Part 2 will be the reflection on your experience of planning the design challenge, of doing the design challenges in class, and anything that you've read about design challenges so far in this course. So this is still going to be due next week at midnight, and next week I can answer any questions that you might have about it. So if you're feeling like you're not going to get to, being the fact that you're not going to get to do one more design challenge, you could take it upon yourself to do the Box It challenge if you want on your own at home. That might help you think about this a little bit more. Or you can read that again and try to get a sense of how different that challenge might be from the others. The next thing I want to talk about is our final assignment in here. So we did our Representing Place assignment. You're going to hand in the design challenge assignment next week. And now we need to start thinking about planning a kind of a full course of integrated study. So we've done social studies, we've done science, we've talked a little bit about literacy and math along the way. We are still going to talk about fine arts and movement in this class too. But I want us to start prepping you to think about this long-term study, which is going to be the final for the course. And we're actually going to hand in different parts of these in different draft forms. So part 1 is going to be the plan, the overall overarching plan. You are going to think about a 2-week or more long study, similar to your Representing Place assignment, but specifically, you're going to choose a general topic, and then there are going to be very specific things you will need to add into your plan. So we're going to integrate singing, place-based activities, some design thinking work. On Blackboard is a list of all the things that you'll need to include, and we'll talk more about this next week. You're going to hand in a draft of this, actually, the part 1, in 2 weeks. So that's why I want you to start thinking about your topic now and what you might want to do for your long-term study. take a minute and go to Blackboard and download the assignment sheet. Take a look at everything that's required to be in part 1. At least get started in that sense and take a look at the whole assignment. But the feedback, so what I like to do with drafts is you hand in a piece of the assignment for no grade, and I will just give you comments and revisions, things that you can do to fix it up for when the final assignment is due. So that's why these due dates feel like, oh no, they're coming up really, really quick. Like, how am I going to get this done? But these are drafts that are not graded. So we can take a time to just sort of get an idea down on paper. So like I said, part 1, an overall plan for your long-term study is going to be due in 2 weeks. I will send you back comments, but no grade. Part 2 is where you're going to plan for a 2-week long-term study, and then you're going to pull out like 4 days or 4 activities out of those 2 weeks, and you're going to talk about them in more detail. That draft is going to be due on our last class on December 9th. We're actually going to, that should say December 9th in both places. We're going on those bullets. We are going to kind of look at our different planning activities in class on December 9th, and I will then give you some feedback on those. I'll turn them around really quickly, because then you're going to take your part 1, your part 2, and part 3, which is going to be a reflection on the whole process. There are very specific questions in the assignment sheet that you are going to write about. You're going to put all 3 parts together and and have a chance to incorporate some of my revisions and put it all in a final draft that's going to be due on Sunday, December 15th. So nearly a full week after our last class. So you'll have that amount of time to put it all together and hand it in. And that is going to be our final. We are not going to have a final exam time during this course. So December 9th will be the last time that we meet on Monday night. And December 15th will be when the final hands in. So you'll notice that November 25th is actually a day when I'm going to be in Texas for my social studies conference. And that is when your first draft is due. So we're not having class at that time, and I'm not even going to post an online task for you to do. I'm just going to have you work on that planning draft. So there probably will be a video for you to watch to kind of help you out, but other than that, that'll be all that we're doing on the 25th. So that's a lot I just threw at you right now. So here's what you need to do. Check out the assignment sheet on Blackboard. Check out some of the resources that are there so you can get a look at it. Next week when we meet, we will talk about this. I'll print out a copy for everybody and I can talk about it a little bit more, but I definitely wanted to introduce it today. So some tips for planning the integrated study. I would actually think if you're working with young children right now, like at a center or in a classroom, I would highly suggest planning something you would actually teach with those children in your work, right? So that you might actually use it. So that's why I'm helping you start to think of topics and ideas now so that maybe you can go work with the teachers that you're working with, think about what this might be. So you're going to do that integrated study will be kind of a brief overview. You'll pick 4 different activities to actually go like kind of zoom in and do more detail on, and then reflect on the process of planning the whole thing. All right, so now that I've sufficiently thrown a lot of information at you, let's talk about next week, November 18th. We are going to do something pretty special next week. We are not going to be meeting in French Hall. We're going to be meeting at the Whaley Historic House. Now, the Whaley House is on Kersley Street, right by campus. You could walk there if you want to park on campus, but there's actually a parking lot right behind the Whaley House. It is a historic museum. It really just looks like a house. What we're gonna do is we are going to start there. There's a meeting space, so we will start class our usual way with good news. We'll talk about the long-term study assignment and the design challenge assignment if you have questions. We will do an activity with our text connections, and then we will take a tour of the house. So that's gonna be kind of fun. So you will still need to bring something to write with and your text connection or have a way to access it in some way. And you'll want to know that we are going to be walking around the house the rest of the time. And I have an activity that we're going to do, like a little scavenger hunt with our historical tour. So the center director will give us a tour, so that'll be kind of fun. We probably won't go all the way till 8:15, but you never know. And then we will make sure that we are staying for at least a couple hours. So then I do want you to read an article on Blackboard because it's about cultural universals, which is going to be part of our activity, and that's going to be what you do your text connections on. So that's up on Blackboard already if you want to get started on that. And there is, like I said, going to be a text connection due, so you want to submit that before class, before we go to the Whaley House, and submit your design challenge assignment by midnight that night. And then, like I mentioned before, November 25th, we're not meeting at all, and you'll have that first overall draft of your long-term study assignment due at that point. So hopefully you all have a fantastic night. Make sure that you are doing that task on the 6 hats of thinking and that you submit it. And I'd like to have those submitted to Blackboard by the end of the day Wednesday, so in 2 days from now, November 13th. And like I said, it's not going to be graded, but I'm going to count that as attendance for tonight instead of meeting in person. I'm glad after driving home, I'm glad we canceled class so that none of us have to make our way back in the dark. So I will see you next week on November 18th at the Whaley House. If you have any questions, please email me, let me know, and or call me, and we will talk soon.